Tonight, we are not just talking about a family. We are talking about political technology. Before you get comfortable, like the video and subscribe if you genuinely enjoy long-form historical breakdowns. And tell me where you're watching from, because the story we're about to discuss does not belong only to Britain. The monarchy shaped borders, languages, trade networks, famines, migrations, and wars across nearly every inhabited continent. Now dim the lights, settle in, and let's talk about why a crown still exists in the 21st century. In January 1936, King George V died. His eldest son became King Edward VIII, and for a moment, everything looked stable. Edward was popular, charismatic, modern, and comfortable with media attention. He understood radio, photography, and public appearances far better than previous monarchs. Many people believed he would modernize the monarchy and make it feel closer to ordinary citizens. But there was a problem. He intended to marry an American woman named Wallis Simpson. Today, this sounds unremarkable. In 1936, it was a constitutional emergency. Wallis Simpson was divorced. Twice. And as monarch, Edward VIII was not just a symbolic figure. He was also the supreme governor of the Church of England, which at the time opposed remarriage after divorce while former spouses were still alive. This meant the issue was not merely romantic. It was legal, religious, and political simultaneously. The king's personal life had collided directly with the structure of the British state. Under Britain's constitutional system, the monarch reigns, but does not rule. Government authority comes from Parliament and the Prime Minister, but it operates formally in the monarch's name. For that system to function, the monarch must remain politically neutral and publicly respectable. The monarchy works only if it appears stable, disciplined, and above controversy. Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin recognized something important. If the king openly defied government advice, then the constitutional balance would break. Either the monarch would be asserting independent authority over elected officials, or the government would appear powerless to restrain the crown. Both outcomes were dangerous. The monarchy survives precisely because it does not openly exercise personal will in political matters. So Baldwin informed Edward VIII he could marry Wallis Simpson only if he abdicated the throne. Another unusual feature of the crisis was how long the British public did not know. British newspapers barely reported the relationship for months. Editors deliberately suppressed the story. At the time, the press maintained a cooperative relationship with the monarchy and government, believing national stability required restraint. American newspapers, however, did report it. Eventually, the information crossed the Atlantic back into Britain. Once the public learned the truth, the situation escalated rapidly. The monarchy depended on public respect, and controversy was spreading faster than the institution could manage. The royal family faced a dilemma. If Edward remained king and ignored government advice, monarchy risked becoming political. If he abdicated, the institution might appear weak. There was no perfect solution. On December 10, 1936, Edward VIII signed the instrument of abdication. The next day, he delivered a radio broadcast explaining his decision. He stated he could not carry out his duties without the help and support of the woman I love. It sounded romantic. Constitutionally, it was transformative because the crisis clarified a rule that had previously existed mostly as tradition. The monarch's personal preferences are subordinate to the stability of the state. Edward VIII did not lose his throne because Parliament overthrew him. He lost it because monarchy depends on public legitimacy, and legitimacy depends on predictability. A monarch can inherit power, but he cannot behave like a private individual. After the abdication, Edward's younger brother became King George VI. Unlike Edward, George VI was not naturally suited to public performance. He had a severe stammer and disliked public speaking. Yet the monarchy now needed precisely what Edward had failed to provide: reliability. George VI embraced the role as a duty rather than a privilege. This mattered enormously, because Europe was approaching another war. The new king and his wife, Queen Elizabeth, later known as the Queen Mother, deliberately presented themselves as steady, modest, and committed to national service. The monarchy leaned fully into its new identity. Not glamorous rulers, but national servants. The institution was quietly rewriting its own mythology. The lesson from the abdication crisis was simple but profound. The monarchy survives only when the individual monarch sacrifices personal autonomy. The person becomes secondary. The role becomes primary. The abdication also settled a long-standing ambiguity. For centuries, British monarchs theoretically possessed significant legal powers. In practice, they had gradually stopped using them. After 1936, the understanding became clearer. The monarch does not act independently of government advice. The crown still holds formal authority, but elected officials exercise it. The king signs laws, but Parliament creates them. The king appoints the Prime Minister, but must choose the individual who commands a majority in the House of Commons. This is often described as a constitutional monarchy, but it is more precise to say the monarchy became a constitutional symbol attached to a democratic system. The abdication crisis proved that the survival of the institution depends on restraint more than authority. Paradoxically, losing a king saved the monarchy. If Edward VIII had attempted to rule against Parliament, Britain might have faced a direct confrontation between democratic government and hereditary power. In the 1930s, during global economic depression and rising political extremism, that conflict could have ended the institution. Instead, abdication reinforced a principle: the monarchy exists only with public consent. From that moment forward, every monarch understood the unspoken contract. They could possess immense prestige, influence, and visibility, but only if they never appeared to compete with democratic government. This rule would guide the monarchy through the most dangerous period of the 20th century, because within 3 years, Britain would be at war again, and this time the monarchy would not merely survive the crisis, it would become central to national morale.